during our meeting here with Ted Thomas, who of course is the authority on tax lien certificates and tax auctions. Ted, it's always good to see you. I'm up here in Cleveland, Ohio. And Ted, of course, you're down. You're in Florida, and I think you guys have some weather heading your way, don't you, Ted?
Yeah, we have a hurricane that's working its way up from actually it's in the Gulf right now, in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's turned a little bit east. So I think everybody from Fort Myers through Orlando all the way up to Jacksonville is going to have significant rain. 16 inches is the high that they forecast in rain, and the low is 6 inches. So everybody's going to have a lot of wind and a lot of rain, but people are preparing. You can't get a lot of water at the grocery store. Everybody's already bought it all.
Well, yeah.
Really.
Well, yeah. We're going to get started here with you, Ted, because make sure if you got to take shelter or something, we want to get through this and don't want you to have any problems.
Thank you.
Hey, and maybe Ted, for folks who are joining us right now, and maybe this is first time exposure, why don't you give them maybe just a little what is a tax lien certificate? What is that specific investment all about?
All right, good. Nice place to start. Nice place. Okay, so first of all property in the United States is taxable, okay? Now, if it belongs to a school or a church, it's not taxable. But otherwise, everyone has to pay property tax. And unfortunately, people have all kinds of trouble in life. They get divorced. They have crises. They have floods. They have hurricanes. A lot of things happen. And so everybody doesn't pay their tax. So if you don't pay the tax, there's going to be consequence. And the consequence is really severe. And it's so severe that the government, meaning the local government at the county level, could actually take your property away if you didn't pay your taxes. Now, half of the states are very benevolent. They call those tax. Now, I made up that word, benevolent, made it up because I feel they're very nice to people because they don't push the people off the property. So in the tax lien states, they issue a certificate. Certificate is just a piece of paper. So they take that, they say, all right, we're going to issue a tax lien on your property. So they're going to issue that piece of paper and anybody can come in. So Randy, you can come pay my tax. I could go pay your tax. And if I do that, so I pay the tax on your house. Well, you say, why would I do that? Because if you were in Florida, which is a tax lien state, I could earn up to 18% on that certificate. So when you came in to pay your taxes, they're going to slap your hand. They say, oh my goodness, you paid your taxes late. So you have to pay the tax plus 18%. And they would give the 18% to me. So, wow, this is a way for me to make money. So I can do that in half of the states in the United States. And so they have lists of these tax liens. I'll show you a list. So one of the places going to get hit really hard with the hurricane is Tampa. All right, so Tampa, Florida, this is just a list of tax lien certificates. That's all it is. And it's a huge list. Okay, now, because we're using a green screen today, you can't see it all, but this list has got about 40,000 tax lien certificates. So it's just a newspaper, and it has no pictures, no stories, just tax lien. So all of the counties will sell those tax liens in Florida and half of the other states in the United States. So that's kind of a little overview on tax lien certificates.
Hey, Ted, if I remember correctly, you don't need to live in the state to get a tax lien. You can buy a tax lien from another state, correct?
Oh yeah, now because of the online facilities, these states put them up online. So someone in any one of the provinces of Canada, for example, United Kingdom, I have clients in Singapore, I have them in Philippines, I have them in Australia, because they can go online and actually bid and buy a tax lien certificate. And then the government will pay attention to that certificate. And when it pays off, the government will send them a check. Nice, you get checks from the government.
That's pretty neat. That doesn't happen every day. Well, actually, it happened a few days over the past years with COVID, didn't it? But So hey, you're known as the tax lien certificate and tax auction authority. That was tax liens, Ted. What is a tax auction? What's the difference?
Well, now there's a big difference. Okay, so first of all, we had the whole United States, and half of the states will sell tax lien certificates. The other half of the states, they're not so benevolent. What the other half of the states are going to do, they're going to say, wait a minute, you haven't paid your tax, so we'll put your property in default. We'll send you numerous notices. They call that due process of law. Numerous notices, pay your tax, pay your tax. And if you don't pay your tax, the treasurer and the tax collector in that county will confiscate. In other words, they'll take the property away from you. Now they've taken it away, and what are they going to do with it? Well, they're going to push everybody off the property, and then they auction those properties at public auctions. They do it on courthouse steps. Sometimes they do it online. Sometimes they're going to auction the properties off. So anybody can buy one of those properties, and those properties start the bidding at the delinquent taxes. So let's say the property was worth $100,000 and the tax was $5,000. The auction starts at $5,000. So if nobody else shows up at the auction and you bid $5,000, you're going to get it. Now it doesn't, usually people show up at the auction, but I've had people, it snowed out, so nobody shows. You can buy properties for pennies on the dollar. So there's well over 2.5 million properties sold that way every year at tax default at auction. A lot of people don't even know about it.
Ted, that's kind of interesting. I know it's a little aside. You say you were at an auction where nobody was there because of the weather.
Yeah.
So, obviously when you're at an auction, the more people are there, the more chances, the price goes up. You don't want that. So, boy, do you have any other strategies to look that may let you know there's not going to be a lot of people at an auction?
Oh, yeah.
That's a weird question.
Of course. Yeah, that's a really good question. So first of all, they're going to advertise the auction online. They're going to announce it in the newspaper. So it's a public auction, so anybody can show up. So if it's really bad weather, it's like the grocery store. It's empty when it's pouring rain out. Nobody wants to go out and get wet. So a lot of people don't show up. So that could be a strategy that you could use. You could also start to think about what you want to bid on, and you could think to yourself, what properties do I want to bid on? For example, everybody can come up with $10,000 or $20,000 to bid at auction. But what if this auction, and you looked at the list, they had nice big colonial houses that were 3,000 square feet, 2 stories, 4 acres, big oak trees, things like that. Well, those houses go for auction too. And
wow,
what if the starting bid on that property was $50,000? Well, everybody isn't going to walk in the room with that. So you wait and you just bid on the certain properties that you want. So there's just dozens of strategies that people use to buy tax liens and tax default the property.
Now, Ted, I know I've been asking you a lot of questions now, but we have some of our viewers have questions. Sherry has a question, and it is, can tax liens be transferred privately if you wanted to offload them after the auction?
Well, yeah, sure. You can transfer it to somebody else. What you own is a security based on that property. So let's say I bought a certificate and I wanted to give it to a family member or a friend, or I wanted to sell it to them. Yes, you could do that, and that person would now have and you just it's just a normal process that happens all the time. It's not a problem.
Okay. Well, we have somebody else here who I think he's perhaps heard you talk before. He says, I always hear you talking about Georgia. Why is it so good? Georgia.
Oh, I love Georgia. I live in Florida, but Georgia and Texas are what we call in the business, those are penalty states. So a few minutes ago, I was talking about a tax lien certificate. And if you came in and paid it late, the interest rate was all the way up to 18%. I said the interest rate. Well, Georgia doesn't use any interest rate. What Georgia says, if you buy a redeemable deed in the state of Georgia, which is what they sell, if you buy that, you paid someone else's taxes, that person can come back in and redeem. In other words, buy the deed back and get their property back. And when they come in to redeem, they have to pay 100% of what you paid. In other words, you get 100% of your money back and a penalty of 20%.
Wow.
All right. Now, if I buy that certificate, they sell them every month. So Georgia has 159 counties. They're going to have an auction every month. So there's more than enough for everybody. So let's say I raised my hand. I bought the certificate. It's nothing more than this piece of paper. I bought this deed, redeemable deed. I take it home. The guy comes in the next day and said, oh, I meant to pay my taxes. So he's got to come back, come in the next day. He pays me whatever I paid plus 20%. I can make that in one day, or any day for 365 days, I make at least 20%. Well, where am I going to make 20% of my money? And I get a check from the government, or I get a check that's guaranteed because I either get the property or the check. So Georgia is
Yeah.
fantastic. There's 5 other states that are like that. It's amazing.
And they have great peaches in Georgia too. Some of their peaches are
Great
fantastic.
peaches. That's right. Listen, Georgia's a rural state. It's really a farm state.
Yeah.
It's in Atlanta and a few places like that. But Georgia's a nice state. It's pretty. It's a nice place to be. They get some
Got another question.
There.
Another question here, Ted. What if the original property owner claims hardship? How would that affect the person who pays off the tax or the deed lien, the tax deed or the lien?
There's nothing but hardship for people that don't pay their taxes. If you don't pay your taxes, the government doesn't care about your hardship. You're going to have to pay your taxes. Now, they might have some little unique rule where someone passed away and they've only got a 3-year-old son, and the property now went to the son. There might be some deal like that, but they're going to not take the property away. But I'm telling you, the hardship does not play well when it comes to the government. You will either pay or you'll lose your property. Let me say that again. You'll either pay or you lose your property. Your tale of woe is not going to be listened to by the government. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, Ted, tell us this. Is it easier or harder investing in vacant land?
Did you say vacant land?
Yes.
Oh, well, no. From my experience of 30 years of doing this, there's about, from looking at auction lists, about 25% of every auction that I've ever looked at, about 25% of it is either going to be vacant land or some type of land. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of land, like this, cultivated land, there's vacant land, there's wetlands, there's residential land, whatever. But about 25% of the land that comes up for auction, that is in the auction, will be land. So there's a lot of land, and there's nothing wrong with land. I mean, they're not making any more of it. It's a big joke, but there's a lot of land will come up for auction, especially when times are tough, because you see the land isn't producing anything under most circumstances, so people might walk away from it. So that might just be an opportunity that you're looking for. I can tell you, at an auction, the average person that's going to go to an auction, the average person going to an auction was conceived in a house, they grew up in a house, they live in a house, and when they go to the auction, they bid on a house. So all the land is overlooked, and so that drives the prices down. So the auction price might be X, but it's going to drive prices down because not a lot of people are bidding on it. But I wouldn't close my mind to land if I know what I'm going to do with it. Now, there's all different kinds of land. There's land in the middle of Arizona that's like a desert. There's cultivated land in places in Texas that you might have to pay $30,000 an acre because it produces a lot of vegetables. There's all different kinds of land out there. Some land's for grazing. There's some land that you just grow trees on. There's some that have, apple orchards and whatever. So there's a lot of different kinds of land. I don't think I'd buy any land without a land broker to help me and without a survey. A survey is very important. If you're going to buy land, here's your challenge. Drive to what you think is the land, get out of your car and look and tell me where your land starts and where it stops. You can't. You're going to have a surveyor, someone that knows that. So what if someone else has bought a piece of land and their land encroaches on your land? All right, how are you going to know that? You're not going to know without a survey. Mm-hmm. So there are unique things that you need to think about. I mean, you wouldn't buy a house without knowing what piece of land you are buying. It's the
Absolutely.
same thing.
And, hey, Ted, you mentioned working with a land broker. Just to clarify, would that be somebody, you talked about the different types of land and the uses and the values. Would a broker be able to fill you in on that kind of information?
Well, it's like people. There's brokers and there's brokers. So a broker that's working in New York City, I don't know if I want to even buy a residential property, 100 miles upstate. I don't know if I want to do that because upstate broker knows a lot more about what's going on there. So if you're going to buy land, I want to get a broker that specializes in land. That's why I call them a land broker. And so if I'm going to sell that piece of land, I don't want the guy that's just working in the city. I mean, he or she is going to say, oh, give me a listing and just put it on the multiple listing and hope it sells. I want to get a land broker that understands what the pricing should be, how long it's going to take to sell it, whether it's got drainage, whether it's been,
Yeah.
whether it's been surveyed. I want someone that's more knowledgeable about that. Whereas the person in the city, for example, I don't know what rental on a building would be in New York City or Cleveland or any other place. So I'd want to use a broker that knows that. So that's why I say, so I just casually called them a land broker. I guess I'd have to say a city broker for the other one.
Well, but that all makes sense. It's, getting somebody who's going to know what the
Knows what
area
they're
of the
doing.
property is.
Yeah.
Hey, earlier, Ted, you mentioned that, regarding tax liens, that you could buy those out of state. Edmund wants to know, can you buy a tax lien from a state you don't reside in?
There are so many tax liens. There's going to be millions of these things. You can buy from a list in any county in the United States, as far as I know now. Now, when I started 30 years ago, you had to go there to get the list. Now they will publicize the list. Here's what your challenge is when you're buying in another state. What are you buying? If you're looking at a list, it's a list of numbers. I'm not gonna marry the girl until I see her, I can tell you. I'm not gonna buy a piece of land or a tax certificate or anything else unless I got boots on the ground. So there's plenty of certificates. The majority of people that buy stuff never look at it. Then they call me on the phone. They say, Ted, I got there and the house was burned down, or I got there and there was water running across my land. I said, well, really? Did you look at it before you bought it? Well, no, I just took out the list. All right, so I'm going to show you a list again. It's hard to see, but there's 40,000 tax liens on this. Let me see if I'm moving around. There it is. All right. These are tax liens. That's all you're getting when you do the order. You better learn how to look it up and see what's there. You can buy in any state that I know of tax lien. All the counties are online now. But
that's just common sense. What you said, you want to make sure what you're buying, or if you're not, you have somebody there who can advise you. We have a question from Claudia. And she asked, what if we just pay taxes on a vacant land that is delinquent before it goes to auction?
Well, I hope you'll do that for me. I'll buy a lot of it if you'll pay my taxes.
Yeah.
Why not? You could pay tax. You're not going to get the property because you pay the taxes. It's still going to belong to the other owner. It has to go through the foreclosure process and be sold at auction before you get it. All right. And then once you get it, you have to pay the tax. But anybody can pay taxes. I mean, there are people that mistakenly pay taxes on property. And I'll tell you right now, the government will accept the money. The government will accept it, but that won't give you any ownership in the property. None.
We have another interesting question here, Ted, about, we're getting out into the process. I think folks are starting to get the overall picture of this, but question here is, can you explain the foreclosure process on a tax lien certificate after the expiration of the redemption period?
I'll make it easy for you. If you buy a tax certificate, it will have a stated redemption period. In other words, in Arizona, we'll use that one. In Arizona, after 3 years of those taxes being paid, all the redemptions now used up, if people haven't come in and paid, then what you would do is you'd pick up a phone and you would call an attorney that specialized in that. And you have the attorney do it. Now, I'm going to explain it, but I'm not an attorney and I'm not giving legal advice. All right. So a simple process would happen. The property owner has now defaulted. And now what you want to do is you want to gain possession of the property. Okay. So we live in a land of laws. All right. So the law says you have to give them due process notice and tell them you're taking the land or they're taking the property because they didn't pay the tax. And then after you've done all that, then you take that and you show it to a judge. And the judge says, okay, you gave them due process and you told them that you're going to take the property. And they put the gavel down and it all took place. Now, I oversimplified it. I'm not an attorney. I'm not allowed to give legal advice, but it's a very simple process and it's nothing to shake in your boots about. It'll probably cost $700 or $1,000. It's done all with letters. You don't go out there and hammer on the door. You don't try to scare them. You don't go out there with your long rifle and scare them. You don't do any of that. You just send letters, and the letters are giving them due process of law, giving them plenty of time to let them know you're going to do it, and then you go do the foreclosure. But you'll never do a foreclosure in your life. You'll always have the attorney do it. That's what they made attorneys for. They do that kind of thing for probably $1,000.
Hey, Ted, another question regarding this redemption period. During the redemption period in Texas, can I start listing the property for sale?
During the redemption period, you don't have rights to do a lot of things. The rules are different in every state. Texas will allow you to do certain things. For example, uh, secure the property, make sure everything is okay. But I would keep in mind before I went on anybody else's property, because Texas is a redeemable state. That means the deed is redeemable. So when you bought the redeemable deed, you now have rights in the property. And the right is that you can now foreclose in so many days. But during that period, you can't bother people. You can't go and strut around like you on the property and push yourself into their house or anything like that. So you just need to sit and wait. So you sit on your rusty dusty and wait until you get paid. And if you don't get paid, then you start the foreclosure process. Again, that's why they made the laws. So the laws, then you'd have the attorney do the rest of it for you. Okay, that's just a normal way to do business. It's very clean. It's very neat. There's no arguments. There's no yelling and screaming. There's nobody shooting guns up in the air or anything like that.
Earlier, Ted, you were talking about the importance of, if you're doing a tax lien or a tax lien out of state, you want the boots on the ground, somebody who can help you. This question is simple. How do you go about finding a good realtor in a state that I don't live in?
How do you find a good realtor? Well, start with Google and do search in those communities. Start with the National Association of Realtors if you want to, or start with the Association of Realtors in that local community and find out who has experience or what you want. So let's say you bought land. Well, you don't want the best residential broker in the world. What you want is the best residential broker that deals in land in that community. And then let's say they gave you 10, then interview each one of them. I mean, there's no magic thing that you're going to type it and there's a magic broker. You just poof, he appears or she appears. No, you're going to ask them a lot of questions. It would take me 20 minutes to tell you all the questions to ask, but you should ask them a lot of questions. They might not have the same thought process about selling as you do. So you want to think about that.
Hey, Ted, let me ask you, just what is one question? Just give us one question that would be really important to ask a realtor.
The first question you would ask them is how many deals they've done this year. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because everybody can get their hair done and look pretty and dress nice, but I want people that are intelligent. So tell me how many you sold, how many you sold at the price you wanted to get, what's the best price I should sell this property for, why is this the best price, what does it compare with? We could go on for hours. You want to know that person's got to have knowledge before I'm going to hire them. I mean, everybody's coming on the call today. If I don't answer the question right, they say, "Oh, that guy Thomas, he's a turkey. He doesn't know his arm from a hole in the ground." Well, guess what? It takes time. It took me 30 years to get where I'm standing right now.
And that's why you probably know the answer to this next question. What is the point of hiring a title company?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, it's hard to buy title insurance without an attorney that sells it or the title company. All right. So when you buy something, how do you know that there's no other liens on that property? How do you know that that property isn't a wasteland? How do you know anything about that property unless you have done your due diligence? Well, the title company, you'll do yours and they'll do theirs, and they might find out that someone has a lien on that property that hasn't been paid. Well, you say, wait a minute, I don't want to pay that lien. They're going to say, well, if you already bought it, you already got the lien. So what you would do is you'd hire the title company ahead of time. They'll say there's a lien on the property. So, oh, okay. Then I tell the guy, I'll buy your property after you get the lien off it. And then what people do is they put money in an escrow to handle all that. That's a little complex for this class, but it happens every day, hundreds of times every day.
So Sherry wants to know, am I responsible for property taxes while I hold a tax lien certificate?
When you hold a tax lien certificate, what you're doing is you're waiting to get paid on your lien. So if another lien comes due, you have an alternative. You could say, no, I'm not paying it. Or you could pay it and now solidify your position even more. And if another one comes up, that would solidify it more. So when you actually go to an auction, online or offline, you raise your hand and you buy a certificate. They'll say, do you want to pay next year and the year after if it was 3 years? That you would say yes. because you want to own all those, but you don't have to buy those. But I would buy all of them that I could buy. First of all, why are you doing it? If you're buying a tax certificate, your intention should be to make money. So if you could buy 3 of them in just one transaction, when the people come in to pay, they got to pay on all 3 of them, and they got to pay the high interest rate. So of course you'd want to buy all 3 of them.
I've got a question like
it's an academic question. From in a practical world, you'd want to own as much as you could own. In a
sure.
academic world, people come up in questions like that. They find them in a textbook. You don't find that in the real world.
Hey, Ted, I've got a question I'd like to ask you. I'm going to give you a clue as to what the question is. All right. Shh. What is a quiet title, and why should you use it? You didn't get my clue, did you?
I should have got it. I should have been ready. It's amazing. I spent so many years in this business, and nobody even knew what a quiet title is. And now suddenly everybody's worried about it. We haven't had a class yet that someone didn't ask about a quiet title. All right. When you buy a property at a tax defaulted auction, you're going to buy it from a local county. The local county knows where the property is, but they don't know what's ever taken place on the property. And they don't know that the property has a clear title. They don't know if the roof leaks. They don't know if there's a basement that floods. They don't know anything about the property. They just know that the tax is owed on it. So what the county will do is they will sell you a property at auction. They will not warranty that property's condition in any way, shape, or form. So they're going to give you a treasurer's deed, a quitclaim deed, a commissioner's deed, whatever. Whatever it's named, it's going to be a quitclaim deed. All right. Well, a quitclaim deed is no good when you go to try to sell something. So if you're trying to sell a property to another person, they can say, wait a minute, I don't want a quitclaim deed. I want you to warranty that there's nothing wrong with the property. Oh, well, how are you going to do that unless you go and get a quiet title and make sure any defects in the title are clear and you're reporting any defects in the property's condition itself? So how do you do that? So when you buy a property at a tax defaulted auction, you buy the property, you get a quitclaim deed, and then you have the quitclaim deed turned into a process of a warranty deed, and that process is called quieting the title, and it can only be done by an attorney. How is that?
And we know you're not an attorney because you said that a couple of times, and we know that from that really groovy shirt you're wearing, by the way, Ted.
Is that pretty good?
It looks great. I love them. Hey, you talked earlier about vacant land and buying vacant land and such. Somebody has a good question. So, where would you list a vacant land for sale? Once you have the vacant land, how do you sell it?
Oh my goodness, there's so many places to sell stuff. There's literally, I'll say dozens, but there's probably hundreds of places to sell vacant land. But you could start out with the basics. The basics would be, why don't you use the multiple listing system? Why don't you use eBay? Why don't you use Craigslist? Why don't you use Zillow? Why don't you use Trulia? Why don't you use Facebook Marketplace? Those would be the basics to get started. Oh, there's hundreds of places selling stuff. There's so many places. I mean, everybody today, nobody wants to work. They just want to have a website to do all the work for them. So there's all kinds of places to sell them. Use them all. Use every one that you can find. If you find a new one next week, put it on there. You never know who's going to. What about putting signs on the property? What about putting banners on the property? What about sending balloons up over the property? I mean, you can do any one of those things.
Makes sense. Hey, Ted, one of your viewers is also in Florida, and the question is, if I buy county held tax lien certificate, how long do I need to wait to redeem?
Okay, in Florida, the certificate can stay outstanding as long as 2 years. Anytime before the 2 years is up, they can come in and pay you whatever you paid and whatever the high interest rate you bought. So the interest rate in Florida could be all the way up to 18%.
Okay. And hey, somebody else is asking about, getting those boots on the ground to look at something when you don't live in the area. And again, you kind of touched on this before, but What are some of the ways to get that, to ensure property is at least still standing? Do you fly to other states yourself? Are you hiring somebody? And again, it might be, how do you hire somebody to check out a property for you?
You're doing good the way you're asking the question, even because you already gave me the answer. You got to do all of the things that you just mentioned. So first of all, I buy properties in other states. So first of all, I'm going to get an auction list. So let me get an auction list. Okay, here's an auction list. You can't see it because the way we're filming today, but this is an auction list, and it has 166 property. It's called Dutchess County, which I happen to know is about 100 miles north of New York City. So they got 166. So I got this brochure because I downloaded it on the internet. I downloaded it and I put it together as a booklet because it was nice and easy instead of carrying all those papers. All right, so the first thing I do, I locate the property that I think I want. All right, now I can go online and I can use the GIS mapping system. Okay, that's a geographical information system. Nothing more than a satellite going around. It comes over the property and it can give you topographical information, can give you where the roads are, give you the water. It can come right down top of the house. Then I can use Google Maps. I can go up and down the streets and see what's there. Then I can call a broker and I can say to the broker, look, I want you to go look at this property. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy it at a tax auction. And what's it worth? How many days will it take you to sell it? So now what I've done is I've done a lot of checking on it myself before I've confirmed that I'm going to go to the auction. Now I'm going to have a broker confirm what I can sell it for. Then I'm going to get on a jet plane. I'm going to go there. I'm going to have someone drive me out to that property. One of the people works for me, preferably. And I'm going to take a big iPad, about that big iPad, and I'm going to take pictures of it. All right. And I still haven't gone to the auction. All right. Now I'm going to determine there are other properties that are comparables. I'm going to know what I can sell it for before I buy it. Now I'm going to go to the auction. None of that cost any money. A little airfare to check it out. But I had boots on the ground. When my boots are on the ground, they might be sinking into wet grass, and it might be pouring rain or snowing. But my boots are on the ground, and I'm looking at that property, and I can walk around it. I can't go in it, but I can walk around, look at it. I can look at the neighborhood both ways. I can look around. I know where I am, and if I bought in a bad neighborhood, I made a mistake. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make sure I know. You see, the property we can always fix. You can't fix the neighborhood. So how do you know what the neighborhood is from a picture? Yeah. So the person that doesn't do their due diligence and doesn't know the condition of the property is a fool that soon won't have any money.
Well, speaking of doing due diligence, we have a question here. I mean, this is a good question and answer session. Somebody's wondering if you have any other types of question and answer sessions. And I think we have a video we can play that'll kind of answer that question.
Yeah. Why don't we do that? Well, there's other things. Austin, why don't we show the people every Wednesday night, I pay a coach to anybody that's a client can come to the class. And I think Austin's got a video we can play about
the Wednesday night class. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Ask him if he'll do that.
Austin, take it away.
So we've been conducting those classes for 12 or 13 years now. Every Wednesday night, I have a different coach there. For the coaches work a month at a time. So the same coach is kind of continuous for that month, and then next month they put another coach there. But we've been doing that for years. We also do other classes. But people that don't know anything about this, they can always go to my YouTube channel. I won't bother showing that now. But I will show before we finish. When we finish, I'll show people what they can do. We have 3-day workshops that people come to. We do that 4 times a year. People come from all over the English speaking world to come to that to watch other professors talk about the people that are students of mine. We have them tell about how they made their money in a live classroom, so you can really see it. But it's very nice. We're in a sterile environment, you with questions and me standing in the studio, but when they see the real people doing it and see the examples, boy, that's something. I'll show that when we finish today.
Hey, another question here. Somebody says I'm a new subscriber. I know, but asking, where should I start?
Uh, well, that's a good question. Where should you start? I would start by just doing exactly what your facilitator. Everybody gets a facilitator when they start with me. So if they're already a client, then they should start by talking to the facilitator because they'll walk them through all the materials and so on. But if they're a person that hasn't started with me, well, then what you want to do is you want to go to a handful of the YouTube videos and look at those. You want to go to the class I conduct. I conduct a 6-hour class every single month. Go to that class. It's all day. It takes 6 hours, and you have to pay for it. It's not, you don't. It's not free, and and then you'll know at the end of that 6 hours if this is a business for you. So you don't spend anything but for the class until you know it's for you. Go to that 6-hour class. You'll know if this is a business you want to do. Uh, Everybody isn't going to like this. There's nothing glamorous about this. We're buying used and abused properties. Okay, we're buying them for pennies on the dollar, and then because we're good at it, we know how to sell them, and we know what to buy, and we're willing to buy them low and sell them low. So all the fixer-uppers and the rehabber people and the people that want to do that kind of work buy them from us. And then there's a whole other market out there of people that have been rejected by the banks. So we then go to those people and let them know they can get a bargain property from us, and we even show them how to finance it. So this isn't a business for everybody. There's nothing glamorous about it, but it's a money-making business. We teach people actually to try to make $25,000 and $50,000 on one deal. That's what we do, but nothing
That's
glamorous
nice.
about it. You're never going to have the Sunday supplement that you're going to be waving about your beautiful property because we're buying bread and butter stuff and we're reselling it.
Hey, Ted, I'm curious, obviously you guys can offer guides and all. You've been in this business for 30 years. What's the most common mistake that a new investor makes?
Well, unfortunately, they keep making it, so it really is common. So everybody thinks that they can go to an auction and they're going to get every property for 10 cents on the dollar. That's where the bidding starts. Okay. So they think that if they don't get a property for 10 cents on the dollar, this doesn't work. So let me give you an example. So if the government's trying to sell a house that really has a value of 200,000 and it's a little used and abused, you're probably not going to get it for 10 cents on the dollar. You might have to spend 50,000, but it's worth 200,000. So you have to do a little cleanup and do some work on it, but you've got a lot of margin. So you have to be able to make a judgment on margin. The absolute biggest mistake people are going to make, they're going to go to an auction, they're going to think they know their way around, and they're going to buy a property that they haven't seen. All right. And then what they're going to do is they're going to pray that that's a good property. And then when they go there, if it's burned down, they'll call me and say, Ted, what do I do? Well, you've already lost your money. So prayer is not a good business strategy. Education is.
And here's a question I know folks tend to ask this, and this is what everybody wants to know. How much money do you need to get started in this business?
Well, you could buy a small tax lien on a little square of land for $50 or $100, but you just got a little square of land. What are you going to do with it, right? The people that are in the business that are successful sort of figure it out. They figure out, well, where am I going to start, and what do I want to build up to? So you're not going to go and get $500,000 houses for 10 cents on the dollar. So you're probably going to have to buy some $100,000 houses or less, sell those, and start building yourself up. So if you had 10, 20, 30,000 somewhere in that area, you're going to be able to get started. This is not no down real estate. There's a lot of people talk about no down real estate. When we go to the auction, we want to get property for 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar. But when we want to get it for that, there's a government people on the other side. They want that money so they can pay the county employees. They're selling this property because they got county employees to pay. So there's nothing no down about that. You're going to have to pay cash, and it's a business for that. So a person that doesn't have any money, they ought to probably start thinking about getting money first rather than go through all the disappointment of saying, oh, there was this great deal, but I didn't have the money. Why don't you start getting the money, and then you can take advantage of the great deal.
Hey, Ted, there's another question here. And I think myself, and I think Austin here, I think we can answer this question. Somebody's saying, I'm nervous to attend the auctions alone. Do you have anyone to help me out with that? And I know we do. And I think we have a video that we can play right now that can take away any concern.
How savvy are you, man?
Hey,
You're gonna be teaching this, you're gonna be teaching this stuff. You're
I'm
hot.
listening too,
You're hot.
Ted.
All right. Has Austin been teaching you all this stuff?
Oh, of
Austin's
course
the
he
director
has.
here. He's teaching you all this.
He's there. He's there. Let me know and give me the cues and everything, man.
He's giving you the answers and all that. Well, play that video. Let's see that baby.
Play that video, Austin.
Randy, you won't believe this, Randy. That was Bill on an auction tour, and you know what? That guy, he bought 60 properties in 6 years.
Holy cow!
60 properties in 6 years.
You know, that's actually kind of a question. I mean, you know, if you get into this business, you know, Ted, what likely will you be doing? I mean, 5 properties a year is 4 a lot? What is? How do you know you're really doing this?
There's people that just do. I'm the opposite. I just want to buy 1, and then 2. That's it. People are buying the smaller house. They want to do 2 a month, stuff like that. It's just up to whatever you want to do. And the key always is, if you can learn how to sell stuff, and we spend a lot of time on that. Nobody else does, but we do. We spend a lot of time teaching people how to get it sold, because getting it sold is when you go to the bank. You make all your money when you buy it. You make all your money in this business the day you buy it. I know you didn't get any money that day, but you get all the money when you go there. So if you learn how to sell, so the people that learn how to sell, and that's what Bill learned how to do. He had, I think, a dozen or more properties before he finally said to Ted, I'm not selling anything. I said, well, why don't we concentrate on that? But then over 6 years, he did 60 properties. So that's pretty amazing.
Wow,
who would you want to go? Who would you want to go look at properties? That's the guy, right?
Well, hey, Ted, I think maybe you should have Bill on the show one time to help you answer questions.
Yeah, well,
he sounds like he's got some stuff.
Do that. I have to build a bigger studio. I just got a little studio in here. We have to walk sideways, you know. So I'll build a bigger studio, and then we can put people in here, and then you can interview 3 or 4 of us. Yeah.
Another question regarding Florida. If the tax lien doesn't redeem in Florida, how do I get the property?
Okay, so Florida is an unusual state in that they have 2 auctions when it comes to tax liens. So when you buy a tax lien certificate, it has a 2-year right of redemption. All right, so let's say the property owner does not redeem. So now it gets down, and now you have the certificate. So now what you have to do with your certificate is you have to call the county, petition the county, and say, all right, you guys need to sell this property. All right, so then the county will say, all right, so at the next auction, they'll put it up, or they might put it up right then, and they'll try to sell it. Now they'll start the bidding at whatever the back taxes are and what needs to be redeemed. If they sell it for more money, what they'll do is they'll pay you whatever you had invested plus the interest. You'll get paid. All right, so you always know you're going to get paid. So the big deal with tax certificate is you invest in the government, you get your money back from the government. So now they've taken care of that. All right. And if they've sold the property and made more money, then another investor got to take advantage of that. So that's how they do it in Florida. The other states don't do that. So let's take Arizona. So they take 3 years, the people didn't pay. All right. When they don't pay, you just go ahead and hire an attorney and do a foreclosure, and you own the property. So Florida is a little bit different than the other state. Florida gives them as much leniency as they can. They're very benevolent in Florida, yet in the state, each year they'll have real close to 1 million, maybe a little more, 1 million tax certificates available every year.
That's a lot of opportunity. So
yeah, it's
for people who do join the virtual workshop, they just want to know, is there a replay video? Which I'm sure they're just asking, hey, if I ask something, you know, can I go back later and watch it? I'm sure you can, right?
No. The answer is no. If they want to come into the virtual workshop that takes all day, the end of the day, you either make up your mind or you don't. If you can't make up your
Okay.
mind in 6 hours, you probably shouldn't be in this business.
Yeah,
You'll know in 6 hours whether you want to do it. And if you can't
that's
make up your
true.
mind, don't do it. Just relax, relax. There's other things to do. This isn't the only business in the world. I mean, this is unusual business. I mean, there's not a lot of people in the tax lien and deed business. I mean, people that get in it, they are in it for a reason. They see the opportunity. If you don't see it after 6 hours, you'll have to go to the whole thing all over again.
Hey, Ted, there's a question I have here that I want to ask you. You've talked about different states have different rates for the tax liens and all. So why wouldn't you just work with the states that pay the highest interest rates?
Well, you would, and that's a very practical kind of question. But let's face it, the highest rate on tax liens is going to be in Illinois. That's 36%. Florida only pays 18. But if you can just crank up your computer and get some in the next county, I mean, why not you can get to know the next county. So you remember now, if you buy a tax lien, you should kind of have an idea of what you're buying. Because if the people don't pay the tax lien, you're going to get that property. So I said, stop praying, pick and check out the property. Well, you have to any checking out to do if it's in the next county, the county, you can get online, pull up the GIS satellite, do Google, drive down there on the weekend, you know the area. And, if you make a mistake, it's because you didn't look at it. The biggest mistake, you ask that every time we talk, what's the biggest mistake? Everyone wants to know. So I tell everybody the biggest mistake, but they just keep doing it. They just won't stop. I say, the biggest mistake is no boots on the ground. If you don't have boots on the ground, why would you buy something you hadn't seen? It's insanity. People do it every day.
Hey, let me ask you a follow-up question though. So let's say that I didn't get the boots on the ground. I didn't do what I should. And then I do end up with a piece of property I don't really want. Do I have to take that property?
Well, no, you can walk away from it, but if you made a deposit when you bid, they're going to keep your deposit.
Okay. All right. And that's why you have a deposit, to make sure you're real. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you're working with the government here. We're making it very simple. And it is simple after 30 years of doing it. But for the newbie just coming in, I'm going to tell you right now, when you fill out that paperwork and you sign it, they got your social security number, they got they can send a district attorney out and say, come on, where's the money? Hand it over. You're not going to buy anything from the government without making a deposit. It's not going to happen.
Well, Ted, another question. This is kind of follow up on the quiet title question. Ted, is a quiet title the same as a clouded title?
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Everybody can stop wasting their time on quiet title. You guys are never going to do a quiet title. The attorney's always going to do it. But anyway, the opposite is what the answer to your question was. So a quiet title is an attorney going back into all the records and making sure that there's no defects. A defect is a cloud. That's just like slang. A cloud on the title means, oh my God, someone's got a lien. All right. Well, liens have to be paid. When people file lawsuits and they put a lien on the property, that's a serious matter. That's a judgment against the property. Now, I'm not an attorney, so I can't give you legal advice or anything about it. But I can tell you this. The attorney does a quiet title to make sure the title's clear. So the title is clear like a piece of glass that's just been done with Windex. Okay, now you got a nice clean title. Okay, the next buyer wants that property because it has a clean title. Okay, and we have our quiet title to prove it. A cloud on the title means, oh my God, there's something wrong with the property. Think of the cloud. It's a thunderstorm. It's a hurricane on the property. It's a cloud. You don't want that.
Well, it's Justin Lakes. We have a question from Justin. How often does Texas host auctions, and what type of auctions? Are they property auctions, land auctions?
Texas is amazing. Okay. I mean, it's really amazing. So every month, all 254 counties are authorized to have an auction. So that means there's 254 auctions, tax defaulted auctions in Texas every month. So that there's enough. All right. Now those auctions are going to sell. They're going to attempt to auction defaulted property. So how many different kinds of property are we going to basically talk about? We're going to talk about residential. We're going to talk about land, and we're going to talk about houses. All right. Now, land could be divided into a lot of different categories. Houses could be a lot of different. So just think of those two categories. That's all you have to know. You don't have to know anything else. When you go to the auction, it'll either be a piece of land or it'll be a property like a house or a ranch or something like that. And they're going to sell a redeemable deed. And that redeemable deed gives the property owner 180 days to redeem the property. If they don't redeem it, you're going to get the property. If they do redeem it, which would be 95, 97%, they're going to redeem it. Well, they're going to have to pay you whatever you paid plus 25%. So how would you like to invest 10,000 and make 25%? Or better yet, how would you like to invest 100,000 and make 25%? Or how would you like to invest $1 million and make 25%? That's happening at auctions.
Okay, that's a question I have here, Ted. And I know you've talked for the importance of like it's being able to sell the property, and I know you have a thing. It's a little different than realtors, like who always say buy low, sell high, and you're like buy low, sell low. Is there a particular type of person that's best to try to sell the property to?
Yeah, well, I first should say I'm contrarian. Okay, why am I contrarian? Because I've learned that very few people are very good at selling anything. So I take the equation and simplify it. So if I buy a property low, let's say it's worth $100,000, and I buy it for $10,000, I know that I can go for all the margin. All right, but I also know that there's a lot more buyers at 50,000 than there was at 100. Why? Because all the people want to get started, all the rehabbers are there, all the renovators are there, all the fixer-upper people are there, all the starter people are there. So I got a real good chance of selling it quickly at 50,000. I also can go to all the people the banks have rejected. So now I've got a massive audience. Compared up here at the 100,000, it's a different ballgame. So I want to buy it low. I want to sell it low because I know, and I'm telling you, so you know, nobody else knows how to buy at the auction. So why don't I buy one, have my cash, make my profit, be able to go to another auction and do another one and do another one and do another one, as against buy low, sell it high. Well, check with the real estate people. Don't believe me, anything I say, check with the real estate people. In a good market, properties move in 90 days. In a bad market, like the one we're going into, it might be 180 or 270 days. Can you hold out and not get a check for 270 days? Can you hold out? I don't have to worry about that. I buy low, I sell low, I got my money, do another one. Buy low, sell low, do another one. There's auctions. There's going to be 5,000 tax defaulted auctions, and 90% of the people that are asking questions today didn't even know there was tax defaulted auctions. They didn't even know it, yet there's 5,000 of them. So why don't I be an expert at that rather than try to compete with all those real estate people?
You know, Ted, right now might be a good time to remind folks that you have a lot of videos on your YouTube channel that answer a whole bunch of questions, and maybe we'll just give them a sense of what they can expect to find there.
Sure, that's a great idea. You know, Austin, I made a little short video on that. If you can show them a little video about YouTube, I do 5 YouTube videos a week, so people can see that.
Let's take a look. That's a whole lot of stuff, Ted. A lot of subjects you've covered.
I didn't get any prettier. I look as the same old ugly mug.
On contrary, I don't know. Every time I see you, you're looking younger, and you've always got a fancy shirt. So
that's why I wear those shirts, so people think I'm young.
Well, I have another question. You talked about doing due diligence, when you're going to get a property. But somebody here asked, what are some of the things you should look for when doing due diligence?
Oh, wow. Good. if you're going to do due diligence on a property, the first thing that most people think of is let's look at the property. For example, if there was a hole in the roof as big as a TV screen that you're looking at, you would probably say, "Wait a minute, this thing probably had a leaky roof for some time. What do you think's happened to the sheetrock inside? And what do you think has happened to the?" So you'd want to look at the structure, but before you even get to that, look at the neighborhood. So let me say it again. I say it so many times in my class, but first of all, look at the neighborhood. Why? Because you can't change the neighborhood, you can change the property. All right. So if you're going to get in really bad neighborhood that you don't want to be in, feel comfortable in, don't buy that property, because what kind of people are you going to get to buy your property, and what kind are you going to get to rent? So you want to look at the neighborhood first. That's one. Number two, look at the ingress and egress. Is it right next to a freight train coming by every 20 minutes, or is it a little bit out in the open? Is it a place that's desirable? So now you've looked at that. Then from there, you want to make judgments. Maybe it needs a new roof. Is it concrete okay, or is it broken? Is the house in disrepair? If the landscaping hasn't been taken care of, well, can you see through that there's still a good structure there? All right. Now you can go and look at the property, but you can't go in these properties because they're supposed to be sealed up so people don't go in there and get hurt or anything like that. But the point is, that's the first start to your due diligence, is know about the neighborhood, know about the condition. All right. Now, once you know that, now everybody knows how to buy stuff. You know how to get in your car, drive down to whatever it is and buy stuff. The key is selling stuff. Who will buy the property? So before I buy the property, I know approximately how much I can sell it for and to who. All right, now we're going to have to teach you a lot on that, but some good ideas would be, who would buy this kind of property in this neighborhood? Is it going to be a couple that just went through a crisis in their life and they kind of had to step down, or is it someone's first house? Whatever. You need to think about who's going to buy the property and how much money you can get for it. So due diligence can include all of that. Now, can I give you a long list of all those things? Yes, we can give you a long list of, but you won't remember it by the time I answer the next question. But the point is, if you buy a property without doing your due diligence, you really put your money at risk. I'm not a risk taker.
One of your viewers is interested in the New York area, Ted, and just wants to know, does New York do online auctions?
I bought 8 or 10 properties in New York online from my office. I'm standing right now looking at a screen just like I'm looking at one right now. The auctioneer there will be on screen, and they'll show you a picture of what they're selling, and they'll be selling in the room. Some of them selling in the room at the same time they're online. So they'll say, the room bid is this. What do I got online? Well, this number 775. That was my number. This 75. He has a bid of X, and then someone wants to beat it, they can just go back and forth. But I've been there and had boots on the ground. Otherwise, forget it. I'm not buying anything.
Well, Ted, we're about almost at the end of our time here, and
Okay.
I know you've got a 3-day workshop. Maybe you want to say a few words.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness you remind me to do this, because I get so involved in answering the question, I forget. So, folks, we're going to end with, and we'll leave it on loop, and you can watch it a couple of times if Austin will do that. We're going to just show you a sense for what we do. So 4 times a year, we try to do it every quarter. We do an event, and people come from all over to come to the event. But the important thing that you're going to see in this event is I'm there teaching, but all the people that are teaching, I call them visiting professors, are experienced coaches. Now, what does that mean? I have coaches that work for me that have purchased and resold over 200 tax defaulted properties. All right, so there's probably not any other group that you could ever see and learn from that's like that. So they do that, and we do that from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night for 3 full days. So it's a data dump for 3 days. So it's really important. Now, our regular customers get that as part of what we do, but people can learn about that. It's a really good place to learn. So Austin, go ahead and play that video, and they'll get to see what those classes. They're not big classes. They're classes of 50 to 150 people.
So, hey, thanks for joining us. Take a look at the video, and you'll get a sense of what the 3-day workshop is like.